Yeah, hello, good morning. My name is Manuel Großmann. I'm an interaction designer at Fjord here in Berlin.
Yeah, and my name is Martin Jordan. I'm a user experience designer at Nokia in Berlin as well. Yeah.
And we thought, since it's breakfast time, what's better than talking about a jam? So we're going to talk about a very different kind of jam today. And actually, the topic that we want to discuss today is doing over thinking and making over meeting. So we are all here together at a creative morning. The idea of a creative morning is to bring basically creative people together in some way all over the world. And the event that we're going to talk about, the Global Sustainability Jam, it's a very similar idea. It's a global event where people, creative people and all different kinds of people come together with the same goal in mind, basically. The Global Sustainability Jam in Berlin was not just organized by the two of us, but also by two wonderful ladies who unfortunately can't be here today, Olga Skopin and Katrin Dribisch. Olga Skopin is a media scientist and Katrin Dribisch is a political scientist. And yeah, all of us were really interested in the topic of sustainability and organized the Global Sustainability Jam. So I was talking about jam. So what is a jam? We think that this picture really transports the message of a jam very well. So when you think about a music jam, it's really lots of crazy people, basically, interested, creative. They come together and my remote isn't working. Yeah, so they are, in a way, experts in their fields. So one guy is playing the guitar, another one the bass. They all come together. They have different focus. They come together in a very provisional setup. They have a lot of fun there, and what it's all about, they really learn from each other. So everyone has a different expertise, and everybody has something to share. Once they start playing music, they really get into the flow. But last but not least, it's really about having a good time together. And when you think about this metaphor of a music jam, basically a creative jam is more or less the same, but with different people and different expertise, but it's the same idea. And that really is a design jam. So it's, when you think about the music jam, they really come together to have a good time. It's not that they want to have a great album in the end and that they want to produce a CD. It's really about the time they spend and what they learn in the meantime. And that's the same for a design jam. We were actually, the question would be so why do we have a design jam and what is this for? And it's because basically our world changes, and how it changes, Martin is going to say.
Yeah, thank you. Of course, change is everywhere. I mean, if one thing is really constant, it's probably change. And but this, in a more specific way, that is relevant to us is basically traditional industries change. Work shifts, tasks are not the same as they were like 5 years ago. And the role of designer changed radically. So there are new titles, there are new roles. We have today business designers that don't come from an art school background, so they were not classically trained as a designer. We have UX designers that rather probably have a degree in anthropology or ethnography than classic design. And same as with the upcoming buzzwordy service design. This is a different kind of designer, and this means that we have to work, rather interdisciplinary. And there was one quote in Business Week some time ago. It says, "Design is too important to be left only to the designers," and it's about working cross disciplines and working in collaboration, because creativity, as we know, is always about putting things together that have not been sitting together like this before. So it's about collage and bricolage. And the other thing is the global scope, because what we do in the first world is being watched everywhere. So our things are gonna maybe copied. So we rather do things very good when they're copied, because they're gonna have an impact to the world. And we have the capabilities to seriously do something and to change things in the world. And we are changing, or we are facing seriously change in paradigms, which means that design is not about artifacts anymore, it's rather a process. So design is not a noun, but a verb. And so this means that the myth of the lonely genius is an old model that is gone, basically. And this was what the jam was about as well.
Yeah, so basically that's where we picked up, and that's where also the sustainability comes in. So when you think about sustainability, it's a topic that's really relevant all over the world. We just basically discussed that you can't solve it as a single person. So basically for the sustainability jam, lots of people coming together to collaboratively work on a topic and to solve it. And what we're gonna talk about today is more or less a how-to guide, like how to solve these problems. We would like to discuss an approach with you and hear your opinion about it. So, how to jam, how to solve problems about sustainability with the creative jam. And basically, there are two main points which are really important for such a creative jam, such a collaborative working. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is to have an agenda. The sustainability jam, it was based on the service design methodology and the service design approach. So the steps that you usually go through in 2 weeks or 3 months or 2 years even in a design project, that's what we did during the jam. And so the jam was really, it was all over the world for only 48 hours. So we had a very global topic and had to kind of boil it down to try to solve it in 48 hours. And the claim of the event, of the global one, was making the world a better place in 48 hours. And for that, yeah, one really important point is the agenda. So like in a real design project, it all starts with a brief or with a challenge. For that event, it was sustainability, but there was like a subtopic, and the subtopic was only a single word, which was playgrounds. So all teams globally worked on sustainability in playgrounds. So the challenge was announced at the beginning of those 48 hours, and then the question was, so how do you start? What do you do with it? And we think it's very important to really start with research. And when we talk about research, we're not talking about reading books. We're actually going to Google. We're talking about going out and talk to the users. And the photo that you see here, it's not stock photography. It's a photo that really somebody shot during that jam. So what they did for research, they wanted to go out and talk to people. So they thought, let's go to a playground. We're probably going to see lots of children and young parents playing around. And who they met are these two people. It was close to U-Bahnhof Kochstraße. And there was this old couple who comes there every day because they really like the park, the playground, and they really use the swing and play there. And that was such an interesting insight for us. And that's something that you wouldn't find on Google. And that's why user research is so important. And because there were a lot of those really interesting insights, it was also important for all the people who joined the Jam to share this. So a really important point of the agenda was to share. So at the end of each phase, we came together and each group had exactly 3 minutes to present and share their insights. And after that, they went back and continued working. So the next step in our process was building personas. Most of you will probably be familiar with it. For those of you who aren't, a persona is an archetypical user. So as opposed to say, oh, my product is for someone between 35 and 45 earning so and so much money, a persona is really about saying, my product is for Mike, he's 32 years old, he works and sells cars, for example. And then you really know who you're designing for, and you also know his problems better and his connection to sustainability. Again, those personas were shared with the groups so that everybody can really learn from that. And the next step was then, since we knew the problems from the research, we knew the users from creating the personas, was the ideation phase. And here it's really important to go for quantity, so to get out as many ideas as possible, and this is coming back to the creative genius. So what we said earlier, that the myth of a creative genius is that you sit down, you have this great genius spark, and then you just work on it. But we believe that's not how you work, and that's not how you're going to tackle such complex topics such as sustainability. So it's really about ideating, getting all the ideas out there, and then boil it down again. So who would have guessed, after the ideation phase, people at the event shared their concepts, the design concepts of sustainability with the group, and then really started hands-on design and trying to solve the problems in a design project. So they started prototyping. And for the prototyping, what was really interesting is that for the event, even though it's design methodologies, lots of different people with different background came together. So we had, of course, designers, but we had sustainability experts, people who were whose background was in gender studies, some IT persons, some social scientists, and they all got together and then started to build something. And that's really, I think it's really powerful, because we as designers are used to go into a workshop and do something, do all the details. But when you design with a very diverse group and you have a very short time frame, the prototyping there's a lot of energy in that, and the outcomes are very diverse. So that was really interesting to see. And yeah, basically after, first, then the prototyping as a metaphor would be it's like thinking with your hands in a way. And in the end, the results were presented not just within the group, but same idea as here for the creative mornings. It was basically broadcasted all over the world, so that the ideas would really spread. And that's basically the first part of the how-to guide. It's the agenda and how you set up such a process to deal with a topic like sustainability. But there's more to it than just an agenda.
And this agenda has been had a very tight schedule. So, and it's very good to have a very tight schedule. It's the best foundation you can have, but it's not everything. You have to build on this. And one thing is that you have to create a community, because if you have only 48 hours and time is that little, seriously that little, and people are separated into groups, you somehow have to nevertheless build a community. And one tool for us was having a face wall, so a very analog way of doing the things we do digitally. So people could discover, so fill out first and discover their common interests, and then being in the kitchen and having a snack, talk to each other in between and finding similarities. Another thing was to define deliverables, because if you don't define the output in the beginning, you cannot expect any output in the end. And this is, I think, valid for every teamwork. So in this example, there's an elevator pitch template, and it really helped to make the ideas sharper and to make them really fitting in 2 sentences, and people could communicate this within the very tight schedule.
So basically, each step in the agenda had a defined deliverable, so that people got a template, and they knew what should be at the end of this process, especially people who were not used to these kind of methodologies.
Exactly. And for example, building on the persona Manuel just mentioned, for example, this elevator pitch went even a step further. So the people had to integrate who is this designed for, which need is it addressing, and what is it about, and what makes it different to other services, for example. Another thing is to connect globally. For us, there've been more than 50 other locations apart from Berlin within the Global Sustainability Jam. For us, in the beginning, was about sharing our experiences making up the jam, organizing it, and then we were, to be honest, facing the challenge to communicate within the 48 hours, even not only among the groups, but as well with the other locations around the world. And this was some kind of difficult. But nevertheless, when you go to bed within these days, and you just reading a tweet that in Australia they're just starting the next day and starting in the next jam day, it's just for the global spirit, just an amazing feeling, I think. And one thing we ask ourselves, because what can you holistically know about sustainability? How can we teach? We had to ask experts. This was a essential and crucial thing. So you don't have to be an expert, we learned. You just have to ask one. for example, Moritz Grun from the Sustainability Design Center in Berlin, he talked about reducing the things he's owning to just 100. So this was quite inspiring and making us reflecting, like, okay, what would be my 100 things if I would limit it to this? Jan and Chris from a project they're just launching called Global Waste Ideas, they basically told us that it's not about having ideas, but sometimes just about collecting, analyzing them. So they're collecting waste ideas, upcycling, recycling, whatever, and sharing them, making them just available. Another thing is that, of course, you have to recharge your batteries. So, as it is here today, this morning, it's so important to provide brain food, that people can come together, have a snack, have a coffee, and then start.
And I would actually really say, if you organize any creative event, really do not underestimate the importance of food and coffee. That's what we learned.
Absolutely. And another thing is you really have to enforce improvement, because, as we said, it's all about the process, and it's going to be a next jam maybe, or it's going to be another event that is somehow similar. So always try to get feedback at the end of the run. Try to ask, what did you learn? What did you wish? And what did you think might be improvable? So we always try to gather those things.
So basically, talking about agenda, talking about what we did, let's try to see the big picture here and what this actually means for all of our work and also for sustainability. So seeing the picture in relation to such a creative jam, one main thing is designing with non-designers. So as Martin said earlier, design is too important to leave it to designers. So get in as many outside people, could be any kind of expert as possible. But it also opens a question. So if everybody can design in a way, what's our role? What's the role of designers then? And that's something that we would actually like to discuss with you also after our talk. Also, really, this idea of there's no steam without pressure. So you can see your deadlines in a real project as a burden, but you can also see it as a chance. So what we experienced here, basically, we had 48 hours to solve such a big topic. We had a very, very tight agenda, and that was creating a lot of energy because everything was moving so quickly and so fast that we really got into the pace and into the speed. And also see design as a process, not just an artifact. So we're not arguing that artifacts are not design. That's not the point. It's about design can be more than designing objects or artifacts, and that the process itself is design, and also the process is a design product. So if you design the process correctly, you get very interesting output. And what was really interesting, of course, for us working with lots of different experts was use new tools. I mean, we're all very familiar with our design tools, the stuff we use on a daily basis. But if you use new tools, it's really inspiring. You're going to find out that some don't work for you, but just try it out. And basically on the jam, like the main output was, yes, in 48 hours you can change the world, or at least your world in a way. So that's the takeaways on the jam. But since we're talking about sustainability, what's the big picture on sustainability?
Yeah, the great thing was that we had those little input sessions. So in between all the producing and all the output, there've been 10 speakers with different kinds of sustainability backgrounds. And for example, Johanna Richter, she was there from Africa and doing a project there, and she basically told us how important it is to really integrate people in design process as well there, because she was in the beginning doing some charity in Africa, and then she learned that it's rather important to integrate the people into the design process and make this rather a social business. And the global waste ideas were really is the aim to write down how a waste idea is generated somewhere, and then trying to adapt it to another place of the world. So this was a project, I think, from Colombia, and so the question was how to implement this maybe in Mumbai, and getting there rid of the waste in the favelas.
And really, like, one key term really was social businesses and social entrepreneurships. I think when we think about sustainability, we often think in terms of helping others, but it's quite an arrogant perspective, and it makes people dependent on what you do. And that was really interesting about the input sessions, that it was, even though we didn't ask anybody to put their focus on social entrepreneurship, this was really the underlying scheme, which was, okay, if you want to be sustainable, if you want to help, you have to think about, in the system that we live in, it's based on money, and social entrepreneurship can be a way of helping in a sustainable way rather than giving something away and making people even more dependent.
And we had as well, like the guys from Eco Challenge is a small application that was featured on Fontblock as well, I think, and they had a more cheerful and more playful perspective on sustainability, just having an application where you have a little task and just are socially enforced to change your light bulbs, for example. So in general, I think the outcome for every one of us, even for us doing this a second time with the jam already, was really doing, not thinking. So the first jam we did basically earlier this year, just in 4 days, getting together and just doing it. And sometimes it's about maybe thinking with your hands. So just do a thing, and then you have something to talk about. And then start reflecting, then start communicating. So always the sharing, as we had in between.
And I think especially topics like sustainability, they seem so important that we are afraid to touch them. So it's like, you sit down and you talk about it, and you talk about it, and you talk about it, but what's the outcome? So it's really about doing, not talking. And that's actually also how we would like to end the talk, is since it's about doing, we want to talk about 3 things that you could do if you're interested in sustainability and in jamming. So the first thing is, as we said, build on the idea of others. You can actually build on the results from the global event. So all the results, all the outcomes of the Sustainability Jam, not just the Berlin one, but globally, they're at this website, and they're all published under the Creative Commons. So as opposed to creating something new, maybe just build on something that's already there.
Yeah. So as well, there's the process integrated as well. I mean, there are probably more than, I think 150 something ideas waiting to create it further and brought to the next step, basically.
Yeah. The second one would be, if you're interested, join a jam. The next one is going to be in February. It's all over the world, so when you're from some other city than Berlin, either join one or just do one. You know how to do it. And last but not least, use the principles of such a creative process, which means work in multidisciplinary teams, really break out of the design scene, take on the human-centered approach, and try to be iterative, like in an agile process. That's basically all the input and all the talking we have, and as we said, doing rather than talking. Thank you.
Thanks.